Regular meeting of the Park Board, Park Commissioners, and agenda order of business. Wednesday, October 7th, 2020, 5:15 PM, Council Hearing Room, 1 Government Center. Reading of the open meeting law. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmission are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Roll call of commissioners.
Jeffrey Sawyer.
Amber Burns.
Joseph De Silva.
Helen Rico.
Commissioner Sylvia is absent. Farias, I'm sorry.
Acceptance of minutes of the 9/2/2020 minutes. Have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Citizens input. I have a Joseph Shavs from 1543 Robeson Street, Maplewood, CPA. Stop down over here.
Good afternoon, Board. Thank you for having us, give us the time to talk to you this afternoon. My name is Joseph Sharves. I'm a resident of Fall River my whole life. I live on Robeson Street. I'm a board member of Maplewood Baseball League, Independent Baseball League here in Fall River. And we have approximately about 500 players, ages 4 to 15. Am I right with that? 18, 4 to 18. We're on the agenda tonight to let you know that we have submitted application for eligibility for CPA funding to address the light situation at the Walter Holt Field, which is the upper field at Maplewood Park. It's an epicenter of activity, not only in the summertime, but through the spring and fall. It services, through our organization alone, hundreds of kids throughout the summer, as well as, compounded year after year after year. We've been doing this, my predecessors, over 20 years. We know that those poles are reaching, their end of utility. And we'd like to see them replaced, not only to keep things, I think, in a working order, but as a safety for everyone too. They're old wood. Who knows when they're going to give way? But I know they've probably been inspected recently, because some of them do have X's, red X's, meaning don't climb on them. And that's not kids. That's usually people who have to service them. So with that said, we saw that there might be a possibility to, look at funding from other options, and the CPA Preservation Act allows for the preservation of facilities at, areas and parks of the nature of Maplewood. And we wanted to let the park know that we proceeded with that, we treat the park like it's our backyard. We care for the fields. We put all of our volunteered efforts together to make sure that the place is safe and ready to play ball for the youth of our city. And we want to do that. We want to continue to do that, especially at night. Because that's when the older kids play. We can't play everybody all the time, so the older kids play at night, and we utilize those lights, again, like I said, spring, summer, and fall. So I think it would not only be a great opportunity to continue things in a safe manner, but also in an ecologically friendly manner. I know new lights will cost less for us to pay for, because we do pay for the lights, the cost of the utilities, the cost of utility of water. Those are the things we all, our league takes the responsibility of doing. And we just want let the board know and have your support if and when that time might come, to allow us to make the necessary investments in our city, in the infrastructure to continue the youth activity in a productive, structured, clean environment. And with that, I think I'm finished. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Any commissioners? Commissioner
Well,
Sylvia?
your application is dated, for the CPC dated, I just had it, I'm sorry, the 26th of August.
Yes, sir.
We're into October now. Where does this stand right now?
I know that the board, the CPA committee, they received it. It is in their queue to be examined and to be looked at. I haven't received the answer as far as, yes, you're eligible, we're gonna continue the journey to, the actual submission. So that's where we're at. I haven't received an answer regarding our eligibility, request for eligibility.
Did they at least acknowledge that they have your application?
Yes, they did, yes. We do have that confirmation.
Okay.
Nancy?
Jeff, just to clarify, the application is dated August 26th, and they did speak with me, and I allowed them and told them to proceed with it because the deadline for submission for them was September 1st, and this board didn't have a board in place, so I didn't want to hold them up from applying for that. The September 1st deadline is eligibility. As you know, once those projects are determined eligible, they will come back to this board, and that's when we have the special meeting. They explain, their packet is pretty, pretty clear, but they get more costs, more, real-life costs. And then that comes before us in November. They have to submit the package again for the January 15th deadline. And that's when the CPC will decide which projects will go forward. But of course, from all our past issues with them, they need a letter from the board stating we are on board with them, but I did not want to not have them send it in for the September 1st deadline. There were a couple of leagues that had approached me, but only one ended up sending it in because we didn't have a board in place. I figured we could deal with that come whenever we had the board, and then November or January would be the final.
I understand that, and I respect that. But the only issue I have is, and I know this figure is probably just a figure thrown in here for now, on the application. Anything over $10,000 has to have a public hearing.
Right,
So,
but that's after that. That would be
I understand
after
that, but I just wanna make that perfectly clear to the gentleman while he's here, because I don't want anybody coming back to this board saying, we didn't know that. So we're putting, I don't wanna let it be said that, oh, we were never told that. So I'm making it clear now, before the process gets too far along, and it's made clear that we need to have a public meeting because of the amount. So,
Understood, totally understood, and we also understand that this process, this beginning process is the broad brushstrokes to just see if we can even get any further down the line. And once, hopefully, that does, we will go through the necessary protocol, and understand that there are other things that need to be done for this to happen. But we wanted to show you that from a proactive standpoint, citizens that are up close and personal with the youth of our city, we want to be proactive in helping in any way we see that we can to help with that funding process. And if we have to be the advocates to start the ball rolling, and unfortunately, we found, I learned about this later, but due to the ability we have to put something like this together pretty rapidly, we were able to get that September 1st, at least submission. And then we can kind of take it from there, but at least we got this, and we know it's a long road, and this is not something that's gonna happen overnight, But again, at least getting the ball rolling, getting in front of you, letting you know, and since the COVID aspect and you weren't able to kind of do this sooner, maybe that kind of would have alleviated that. But anyway, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. We have another correspondence for citizens input. It's from Colin Dias. Good afternoon, members of the Park Board. I would like to speak on the agenda topic regarding political activities in the parks. First of all, freedom of speech and the rights to peaceful assembly is to protect under the First Amendment of the Constitution. To fully deny any and all political activities may be a may that be a campaign rally, political protest, or even a simple non-partisan voting drive, is a lawsuit waiting to happen. The City and Park Board must work to extend freedom to our city residents and open up the transparency of government. There is absolutely no point is fully restricting political activities in city parks. As stated before, such a move is illegal, and the courts will strike down the political ban if someone were to challenge such. The Park Board now has the opportunity to reverse its ruling, which can allow equal and fair political activities on park properties. This has the potential to bring in revenues to our city and show more transparency from the city to our great residents. Thank you very much for your time. Respectfully submitted, Colin Dias, 560 Ray Street, Fall River, Mass. 02720. Anybody else for citizen input? This time I close citizen input. New business. I have an open meeting law complaint filed by Patrick Higgins on 9/9/2020. Board members for not filing open meeting law certificates after reappointment. I have a motion to send it
Send
to
it to the corporate.
Corporation Council. I have a motion.
Motion to refer to Corporation Council.
Motion by Commissioner Rego, second by Commissioner Sylvia. All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Preservation application, Maplewood baseball lighting.
Motion to place on file.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Correspondence from Jack Hackett addressing board ball fields lighting at Kelly Park, Father Kelly Park, requesting to address board later with the letter drawn.
Motion to place on file.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Light pole removal costs, various parks, time clock, and lighting cost breakdown, Britland Park soccer fields. Anybody have any comments? I have motions, what you guys want to do with this?
Motion to accept. Okay.
I understand the need for, to remove these poles because of their age and safety concerns. We only have estimated costs and, it's gonna take time to do this, obviously, because of budgets and issues. I think it's great that Maplewood is putting an application to try and rectify the same issue. And that's gonna take time also. But, I believe that there certainly is a need for this. And I think this is gonna have to be addressed, in the next budget. And, you know, the money's not there now to do it. It's plain and simple. So I think this is, you know, needs to be discussed further and at what cost. And obviously, as time goes on, costs may go up. So you know, hopefully we can address this sooner than later. I yield.
Anybody else?
I know we brought it up the last meeting, so we talked about replacing some of the poles. Is that something that we have gotten more information on?
That's in your packet, the pole, the taking down of the poles, because I think that's crucial
Yeah.
first. And we had discussed about taking down the poles at the locations that really weren't used. So, based on that pricing, some of those poles will be able to come down with this fiscal year's
Yep.
budget. They will not be able to be put back with this fiscal year's budget, so, basically, the information that the board has states how much per post, to
Yep.
let you know, we'll be working on that. I will probably start with a location like, say, Cupelo Field, which is the top of Broadway, where no one's using that field, and it wouldn't be an inconvenience to anyone if those lights were taken down, because actually 2 or 3 of them have come down already there, so chances are the other 3 are not gonna survive much longer. So, basically, that information is there.
Yep.
The time clock information, we talked about that, whether we're gonna do it at all fields, so they go off at a certain time regardless of who's paying the bill, or whether you know, how that's gonna work. I was asked to get the information on the time clock, so that's the pricing that I
Yep.
got on the time clock. Now, based on if they do more than one, I'm sure that pricing
Yep.
will, or could change, and I'm sure that he's not gonna give me a quote that's going out to the world that's gonna be a
Yeah.
competitive quote, so, my hope is to take a few of these poles down
Okay.
this year. But as you saw in the package, last time, there's like 66
Yeah.
poles. So, we have no way of knowing which pole was worse off than the
I
other.
was gonna say, is there some sort of plan of which ones we wanna take down first, or I know you had said that the other
Yeah,
part,
we have
but-
no way of knowing that, but I
Okay.
think what we were looking to do was the least inconvenience. So, although Maplewoods have the X's on them, we probably would not wanna take those down until we knew they were gonna go
Be
back
able
up,
to go right back
unless it became something that was,
Necessary.
yeah, out of our hands. We, basically with what we've been given, we're told that these poles have outlived their useful life and they need to be addressed. So, when I received that information, it was, like I said, immediately passed on to the board. Now, whether the administration wants to go out for a bond or go to the council to bond these kind of things, that's another story, but that's something that they would have to decide. But basically, the only thing that I would be able to do with the present budget that we have is piecemeal some of these.
A motion, what do you guys wanna do with it?
I mean, the lighting costs there also are.
Yeah.
We were discussing particularly Britland Park, and there's information there based on lighting of what people pay to other entities, and, you know, unfortunately, it continues that they can't pay that kind of fee for a seasonal permit. This information has come to the board for a a number of months, a number of years, to the point that other communities charge for these facilities. We gotta work out what we're gonna do, you know, as far as leasing, as far as charging people. But, I mean, they pay the school department, these organizations, they pay other departments, and then they don't pay the park department. And then it comes to the fact that we have no revenue source. This is sport, this is the only thing we do. This is our only revenue source. Events, sporting, so it's not popular, but if they're looking for a revenue source from the park department, that's the only thing we have as a revenue source.
Okay, so based on this pricing, do you know, is there a figure of how many we could replace with the fiscal year's budget?
I wouldn't, until I got an actual quote for each particular location and them getting in there, seeing how they're gonna get the pole in and out, what the inconvenience was, until we actually put it out for bid, I probably wouldn't be able to know how many. Based on that, it all depends how much of your budget you wanna say, okay, I'm gonna gamble and hopefully not need this for something else.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a safety concern, and I think you really gotta consider putting a decent portion to get the majority of the ones that are not used down.
Okay.
So if that's something the board would like to do, have us go out, solicit a price for the actual bids for the work, the board can vote and we can do that.
Okay.
I have a motion to give Nancy permission to solicit bids.
Just, I have one
Go ahead,
question.
Commissioner Sylvia.
The figures we got now, the rough figures, that's only to remove the poles. It's not the disposal of them, correct?
No,
So there's gonna be an added cost
no,
to dispose of them, or the city's gonna dispose of them?
the city is gonna have to take them back to the yard and either repurpose them. Sometimes they lay them down for like parking, you know, like to, make a barrier for like parking. I know Britland Park has some poles on the ground across that kind of make for the parking lot, so people don't go on the grass, they lay them across. But for the most part, they are not gonna dispose of them, because the disposal of the pole is quite costly because of some of the contents of whatever they put into the pole to preserve them.
Thank you.
I have a motion to give Nancy permission to go for bid.
A motion.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Burns and Commissioner Rego. All in favor?
Aye.
Just so the board knows, this will have to be discussed with Mr. Perry as well, because he's probably gonna be the one that solicits the bidding or decides how much he wants to spend from that budget,
Yep.
other than the board. I mean, if you have a dollar figure you wanna put on it, that's entirely up to the board.
Item E, Erica Scott Pacheco, Public Records Request, info of August 11th, 2020, and then September 25th, 2020, also additional questionnaire, political activities in park.
How long has these rules been in place?
Quite some time. I had given, I think it was 2011, it might have been, that I had given the board previous information about the first time they were addressed.
Make a motion that we send Erica Scott a list of the rules.
We did already. I have that in your packet. She was sent the rules. She was sent,
Sent it to her?
that's part of the public records request. She was, well, that'll tell me, right. August 11th, 2011 was when the board made the rule. I sent her the minutes of the meeting. I sent her the rules, well, actually through the city clerk, of course, because that's how the public records work. The rules of the board that are on the website that list no political activities of any kind, that was all sent. She has specific questions that she sent in on September 29th in addition to that public records requests that she wanted the board to address one by one.
Well, I'm gonna come here. Make a motion, if you want these questions answered, then come in person.
Is this something that we could overturn if this was something that we all felt like should be allowed?
That would be the board's decision, but what the board has to realize is, once you make the exception to the rule, that it's everybody and everything, every day, anytime, no matter what. The reason the board made this, just a little background, the reason the board made this ruling and made it absolutely none is because, and Jeff can maybe, he's been on the board the longest, he can say, maybe what his interpretation is. It was always, oh, but we can do this, oh, but the law didn't say that, oh, but the rule didn't say this. First of all, we don't charge a dime. That's where this board in the city of Fall River gets into a problem. If you're not gonna charge for the use of the facility, everybody is gonna come. If you can go and do a political activity at the Liberal Club and pay $500, why would you not come to Kennedy Park and pay nothing? That's where the problem, no one's saying, the interpretation is, and some of the questions are, can you walk through the park with a Trump hat on? Sure, if you're just walking through the park and you're walking your dog, but if, the intention of the board was, if 10 people are gonna walk through the park with Trump hats and Trump shirts, now this is sending a statement, it's sending a message, it's sending a political message. And that was where the board wanted to completely get away from it, because one person interpreted it one way, one person interpreted it the other way. And to answer Mr. Dias's question where he said, since when has the board declared public parks a public building? And I answered that public records request. The board never declared the public parks a public building. What the board did was they referred to the rulings of a public building because those rulings are more well-known, more clarified, and more straightforward, so everybody understands it. By saying none, the board felt it wasn't gonna be a rally for a cause, it wasn't gonna be a rally for a politician, it wasn't gonna be a kickoff, it wasn't gonna be a thank you, you will have 24/7 because there is no charge involved. So, that's entirely up to the board. I have nothing to do with the regulations that are made. My job is just to enforce those regulations once they're put in place. But some regulations become impossible to enforce
Yeah.
when they have too many loopholes. So, that's entirely up to the board. I think
Okay.
she, wanted some of these questions answered, which I
Yeah.
think the board can't answer for her without her
Well, I
being
mean,
here.
I wouldn't say we couldn't answer them. Some of them are just kind of sarcastic questions that it's just a waste of time. I will say, some of the things that she did bring up, the one event where it's eat ice cream and register to vote. Everyone needs to register to vote, so something like that I have no problem with. And then also, every day you drive through Fall River, there's people standing on corners, Trump, Biden, it's everywhere. So that's the only reason why I ask, because I feel like people are doing it regardless, whether it's organized or not. This is obviously organized, and I think that this is a good event to have for Fall River. And we do have voter registration all the time, having people go out, so that's why I had asked. If you guys want her to come in, I have no problem, but I feel like this would be a waste of time, these type of questions, so I definitely wouldn't wanna take up our time for that. But if it is something where we want to revisit, I'm open to talking about it,
That's-
if you guys are.
I was on the board, actually, I made the motion back in 2011 to have this rule put in. And again, the idea of it was to go along the same lines as this public building. You can't put a political sign on this building. You can't hold an event in this building for a political candidate or anything like that. So when that was put in, it was put in with that intention, that it's public property. We can't sit here and condone favoring a particular candidate over another on public property. Whether because if somebody wants to hold an event that has 500 people attending, they have to get approval to use the park or whatever location they want to use if it's under this board's jurisdiction. And it was put in that way, so there was no political favoritism, no endorsement of any candidate, or anything like that. The parks are, yes, they're public property, the public is able to use the parks, but for activities that parks are meant for. And parks are not meant to have political statements being made, just like you, again, you can't come in here, I can't rent this room and run for office and have my meeting here for my campaign, if I ever ran for anything. So, it's just plain and simple. It's simple reasoning, the law, the rules put in, and again, along the lines that the city council has rules about public buildings and what they're used for, and the school department, and we went along those lines when we did this back in 2011. I don't see a need for a change, and I don't disagree with Ms. Burns. You know, if it's a voter registration, that's something different. You're not endorsing a political candidate, okay? But when you're gonna walk around in an organized fashion and have a large group of people wearing political T-shirts and hats, then that's an issue, in my opinion. So I don't see a need to change our rule, and I don't see a need to discuss this any further, to be honest with you, because the rule's been in there since 2011. Nobody's ever issued a challenge to it, and again, it's along the same lines as city ordinance that the city council has put in. So, unless the city council is gonna change city ordinance, I don't see a need to change this rule. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I think, personally, I think it should be a case-by-case basis. If it is something like this where she had brought this up because she just wanted to have a voter registration event, it wasn't a Trump event.
That was never brought before the board, though.
Okay.
It was just, I don't know how it ended up there. I
Yeah.
guess someone advertised it, just to clarify,
Yeah.
someone advertised it, that would be happening in the park. It was never brought before the board. I believe she said Mrs. Rigo went to the park and said, look, that you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to have any politics in the park. I believe that's what the information from Ms. Scott Pacheco says, and she wanted it clarified. Like I said, the only thing with the voter registration, I think, is that, again, that's the gray line. Could voter registration be held? But what happens is, somebody sees voter registration held, and they're like, oh, well, I'm just looking for support, or looking for, and it ended up something where this board was constantly going back and forth trying to defend what it was gonna be, allowing, what it was not gonna be allowing. I mean, if they're not gonna have voter registration in a park, there are plenty other places that, in the city, that they would be able to have it, with the park still being able to have their rule across the board. So that, what the board decides to do is entirely up to this board, but in the past, in my
Yep.
past, with this experience with the board, it was always something that was, oh, we didn't know, oh, we thought this was not, this was allowed, this isn't on anybody's side, this is not, supporting a cause. So the board just got to the point where they made that rule, nothing, none at all. This way, there is no room for misinterpretation or, any misunderstanding. It was done, and that's how the board addressed it. If this board wants to do differently, like I said, that's entirely up.
I'll set the record
To this
straight.
board.
I received a phone call from another commissioner. I checked it out. I just told them they could not be in the park, but I sent them across the street to another little island on County Street. Erica Scott called me personally and told me she wasn't even involved in this, and she doesn't know why her name was mentioned. So her saying now that she wanted to have this is not right. I don't know what kind of game she's playing.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one more statement.
Commissioner Sylvia.
I'm reading it right from the rules that are published, and these rules are on the city website. Political activities of any kind are not allowed in city parks. Ruling same as public buildings. It's clear cut. I don't believe there's need for a change.
Do I have a motion to keep the rules as is?
Motion to say that, leave it the way it is.
Second.
Rigo, second by Commissioner Sylvia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item F, letter from Jay Riley, thanking appreciation for park employees. James
Motion.
Riley, I'm gonna read it, so. James Riley, Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020, at 6:56 a.m., Park and Recreations. I want to recognize the park department workers. I walk North Park every morning for my daily exercise. On many occasions, I have observed the hard work they do to keep the parks clean and beautiful. Some might say it is their job, but that might be true. But what I observed in the park is deplorable. The people throw trash everywhere. On occasion, I observed the top of North Park littered with newspaper. I just want to thank the park department workers for their hard work they do every day. The park department director is lucky to have such dedicated workers. I also want to share a story with you. While walking near the wandering pond, yesterday I observed a large pile of junk dumped on the road path. This was a concern because at night, when police cruisers use the path, they could run over the pile of wood and cause damage to the vehicles. I saw a park worker driving by and waved him down. His name was Chris Whitty. I explained to him the situation, and he indicated he was going to take care of it right now. He drove over to the mess and cleaned it up. Once again, thank you all. Your work is for me. Please share this email with the park commissioners. Mr. James J. Riley. Also, on behalf of the park board, go ahead.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
On behalf of the park commissioners, I would like to thank the park workers and cemetery workers for the job they do.
I just want to reiterate that, the park workers don't get the credit they deserve. I've been here a long time, we've had many great workers. They do their job, like the letter says, but they do go above and beyond sometimes. And, we don't get these type of letters often. And I make a motion to place on file.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yay. Invitation to dedication of Paul Poulos Playground, Etna Street. The mayor is, hi, John and Nancy. The mayor is having a press conference at Etna Street Park on October 9th at 11 a.m. Could please make sure that the park is nice and clean? Also, we have the podium delivered for that morning. So they're rededicating, I guess, Etna Street Playground. So, a motion to place on file?
Motion to make it on file.
Motion.
Commissioner Rego, Commissioner Sylvia, all in favor?
Aye.
So, item H, cemetery projects. Chris?
Good evening. The first project is various tree planting locations in Oak Grove Cemetery. So the tree farm down on Bay Street has a number of trees that they would like to get planted this planting season. Because of COVID, the Street Tree Planting Committee hasn't been doing street tree plantings on the streets or on other locations, so they have a number of trees in excess that they want to get planted in permanent locations. So they approached me and asked if there were locations in Oak Grove Cemetery that would work, because it'd be an isolated spot. The cemetery workers could assist in preparing any holes and maintaining them after they were planted. So I had the city arborist come down and walk the cemetery with me and identify 18 different locations in the cemetery that would accommodate either large trees or medium-sized trees. Unfortunately, I don't have a color printer in our office, so you can't distinguish the dots, but there are 8 8 yellow dots, which are for larger locations, and 10 green dots. Some of the locations are in areas in which there were trees planted before and have since been removed because of decay and other issues. And then there's a number of other locations in the newer section of the cemetery, along lots that have buffer zones between the graves and the road that would be sufficient for planting. And in that area of the cemetery, there isn't really many trees at all, so it would be nice to start filling those areas. We're not sure if we're gonna get the full 18 trees, but we wanted to present all of those locations and just kind of use whichever trees are available to fill those locations as possible.
You know what kind of trees, Chris?
So they range in species. I know there's a tulip tree which gets pretty big and has a really nice flower in the spring. There are a few tulip trees in the cemetery already. There's some smaller, maybe some sweet gums and Callery pear trees, all native and all trees that we already have in the cemetery. So they would fit nicely.
Is your recommendation the locations you indicate on here?
Yeah, I think they are good spots when we walk through, especially in the newer section that doesn't have any trees. It would be really nice to bring some trees down there and kind of break up the open space of just straight line gravestones.
When will that planting stop?
So planting would start this month, so we would have a crew ready to go for October 27th to do a majority of them.
I have no problem with it.
Motion to,
I'll make a motion to accept this plan.
a second? Commissioner Rio?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Second item is a few tree removals. The first listed here is 299 Doherty. That's not so much a removal as it is a tree trimming. It was in front of the board before. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get to it. It's one that we consider a low priority because the tree is in healthy condition. The resident has asked that we trim it further away from the house. We hope to have that done sometime next week. But with the tree division, we have one employee in the tree division, so when we do tree work, we pull from the cemetery, and pending burials and other storms that occur, things kind of get shuffled around and pushed back, including your stump on Highland
The
Avenue.
stump.
Yes.
I just want to make one comment, along the lines of what Chris is saying. We do only have one employee, and I know we got a letter about park employees. I also want to commend the tree employee. Last week when we had that storm, he ran around ragged all over the city. I know that for a fact because I work at the police department and I called him several times and I spoke to Chris several times that day to get trees fixed and off the roads and cleaned up. So I'd like to commend our tree employee. And something like this, if it's a healthy tree and it's put on the back burner, I'm sorry that happens. But if, it'll get done sooner or later. Probably later, because of the number of employees we have in that department. But I know it's something that's not gonna be forgotten about.
The next one is 460 Jackson Street. This was a request for removal. I had the arborist assess this one. 75% of the canopy has dieback. The largest dead branch is approximately 8 inches in diameter. It's unlikely to recover, so we should remove that tree.
For a motion to remove that tree?
Second. I'll have a motion.
Motion, Commissioner Rego, I have a second.
Second.
Commissioner Burns, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The third is 140 Primrose. It was a request to remove 2 trees. Both trees are Norway maples, which you can't plant anymore because they're considered an invasive species. The arborist also looked at these. They do not have any major issues. There is some confliction with secondary and telecommunication wires. National Grid wouldn't do anything about those because they are secondary lines and telephone lines. There is some decay, but not significant enough to warrant the removal of the trees. There is response growth at the areas of decay, which suggests that the trees are doing well in some respects. So I think the removal at this time, the recommendation I have at this time is to continue to monitor and not remove these trees.
Make a motion to leave them.
A second?
I'm sorry, what's the motion?
She's, motion to leave them as is.
Monitor and not remove.
Okay,
Monitor them and leave them as is.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Commissioner Sylvia, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the last is at 354 Renaud. This is also a Norway maple. It is quite large. It's causing some hardscape damage to the curb. In my opinion, not major damage. I've seen a lot worse. There's some confliction with overhead wires. And there is a weak union observed that the arborist had circled and brought to your attention. I don't know if you can see it in this printout. It's on page 4.
I don't have a color print either, so.
Yeah,
Right in the center of the tree,
yes.
where it splits.
So the co-dominant leader there has some signs of decay. I think her recommendation here too is to monitor and not remove. And then as time goes on, to continue to watch that decay in the co-dominant leader and make sure it's not progressing.
Chris, I have a question.
Motion to monitor it.
These wires, is that anything to do with National Grid or no?
I'm not entirely positive. When I went out to assess them, they looked like secondary wires to me. Renaud is not a main thoroughfare, so usually they use the transformer to bring them down to secondary wires and run them across those side streets. I'm not entirely positive. And National Grid, I think, does a 5-year cycle where they'll come through the city and do trimming around their primary wires. They are not concerned with secondary wires and won't do any trimming around those.
Okay.
Because didn't I forwarded you a second email from
Yeah,
her.
there was an
She said
email with
National
some-
Grid went out and looked at them and said that they weren't gonna do anything about
Yeah,
it.
so they're secondary wires, they won't trim around them. We won't trim around them either, we would have to hire a contractor to do that. We don't have people qualified, or I don't know if we wanna risk our employees trimming around electrical wires.
You mean employer, employee?
Our employee, yes. So, at this point, I would say we should monitor, and I can have a tree company come out and take a look at what trimming would cost and how much they would actually be able to trim out of that tree.
Make a motion that we, take Chris's recommendation to leave it up and monitor it, and also have it checked out by a tree company.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sylvia, Commissioner Burns, all in favor?
Aye.
And the last thing that I have for cemetery projects is proposed rules and regulations to update our current rules and regulations. Much of what is in front of you this evening has been adopted from other municipal cemeteries, including cemeteries in the Cape and Falmouth, Barrington, Rhode Island, Taunton, New Bedford, that provide very in-depth rules and regulations that cover everything from burials, exhumations, removals, what we do with foundations, and the timeframes in which we do foundations throughout the year for headstones. What else? Stuff to do with perpetual care, so adopting from Mass General Law, Chapter 114, and incorporating those into the rules to kind of remove some of the gray area that we have in our existing rules and regulations. I don't know if there's any specific questions to any parts of what's in here.
I have a question. Has Corporation Council reviewed this? Because you're saying it goes along with state regulations and laws. I don't want anything in here that may be, like you said, a gray area
I
and a
don't know
violation of
if-
state law.
I don't know if the current corporation council has reviewed these. There was a section added in the back, section 12, 12C severability, that if any of this was challenged in any way in the courts, and they made a ruling that one of the rules in this packet was not allowed, it would be removed but not change the rest of the rules and regulations within the proposed packet in front of you.
No, I appreciate the work you've put in, but again, I would feel more comfortable if Corporation Council could review this and get back to us. I'm not against it. And again, I know you've done a lot of work, Chris, and I appreciate that. But I'm just not comfortable until this is reviewed by Corporation Council.
Certainly.
That's my opinion.
I have a
And
motion to
I'll
send
make
it
that
to-
a motion to refer to Corporation Council.
I have a second?
Again, there's no rule here that says you can take the money from perpetual care to make a road. Like you're using, you people are taking perpetual care money and using it for stuff in the cemetery.
Perpetual
I don't
care
think it's right.
is,
What does it say here? For flowers, graves, underneath, but does not say
Where-
anything
where do
about
you-
using the money for
can I
that.
ask what section you're referring to for that?
Right here, the perpetual care,
What section?
perpetual care clause.
Section 7?
Section 6, perpetual care. The planting, flower bed, with the stuff, maintenance, repair, and replacement of any gravestone. There's nothing there saying
It
take
does
the
not
money.
say, perpetual
Bless
care
you.
shall not include either the preparation, planting, or tending of any individual flower bed that are allowed by these rules and regulations, or the maintenance, repair, or replacement of any gravestone. Those are interpreted as
That
personal
ma-
property.
That's perpetual care.
I-
That's a perpetual care money, you're
I
supposed to
think-
take care of the grave. I'm not gonna
not
get
the
into it, I'm
gravestone,
against
but-
using any of that money, so. So that's it. Take this one and send this to the corporate council, I'll second it.
Second. Okay, so,
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question?
yes.
Why would you adopt new regulations without having a public hearing to allow the citizens of the city of Fall River to come in and listen to the presentation on what you want to change and give their input before you would even adopt something like this?
So we're without adopting it yet, we are, we'll do this and,
Mr. Morano obviously wants to have it adopted tonight. If Jeff didn't want to send it to the corporation council, I haven't seen anything about a public hearing.
If I could
Chris.
speak for
Go
myself
ahead,
on that
Chris.
point, I'm not here pushing the board to adopt these rules and regulations. I have prepared these rules and regulations. I have used other municipalities in Massachusetts as well as Rhode Island to prepare what's here. This is my first proposal of these rules and regulations to the park board, and if you choose to refer this to Corporation Council, which I think is a good idea, that's great. If you choose to have a public hearing, that's wonderful. If you have specific feedback as to what you would like to see changed, added, or removed, that was my intention here tonight. Not to say, okay, tonight we need to pass these rules and regulations. It's a draft,
I was gonna
right? It
say,
says it
it says
right on
draft.
there. It says submitted for approval and review. That is not the intent tonight. This is the first time you're seeing it. I would have been shocked had the board decided to just approve them at first glance. So that was not my intention. I'm here to propose them. That's all I have to say on that case.
Mr. Sylvia?
And that's why I prefer to refer it to Corporation Council, because he did make the statement that other towns have these rules, and he mentioned Rhode Island. I'm not a lawyer by any means, and so I'm not comfortable, making legal decisions or interpretations. We have a Corporation Council who gets paid a lot of money to do that. I think we should send it to him, and when we get his opinion, then we can bring it back, and if there's a need for
Public
a
hearing.
public hearing, that's fine. But right now, as of tonight, I think it should go to Corporation Council, let him review it, because I don't know what the law is in Rhode Island or whatever town is being used, and for input, let him determine that. That's what he gets paid for, you know, and that would cover us as far as making any type of uninformed decision. I yield.
So I had a motion to refer to Corporation Council from Commissioner Sylvia, second by Commissioner Rego. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
My suggestion to this board would be to have a public hearing, given its past, experiences with cemetery activity. My suggestion, and a strong suggestion, would be to have a public hearing before anything is adopted.
No, I think, I don't disagree with that, but I think
I agree. The
once we
board
get an
should be
opinion,
first.
I was gonna say,
then I'll form my own
Absolutely.
opinion on what he's telling us.
I'm just
And
saying
go
for
from
the
there, and
board's-
like I said, I don't disagree with Mr. Smith, you know, and we, things in the past, yeah, we should have a public hearing.
I agree.
I agree. I mean, I think this should be an open conversation. I do take offense that someone is gonna claim to know what my intention was in proposing this. But I'll leave it at that, and that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Commissioner inquiries? Commissioner Sylvia?
On here it says, /4 ball update. Where do we stand with 4 ball requests for permits?
The board asked for the information. You want me to go there? You want me to go here? I feel like, I'm not,
Why don't you go over here? So we-
I'm fine if we
Okay,
can.
whatever.
It's
Whatever
however
you're
you wanna do
comfortable.
it.
Wherever
The
you're
floorball, 2 leagues have submitted all their information by the 16th. And they are proceeding with their, requests. We have not, quote-unquote, issued permits. We can, but one league, I hope they come in and sign for the permit. They usually don't. We've had the issue with the soccer leagues. I received information today for the use of the soccer field, because they were looking to use lights, and we didn't have that situation with the lights settled. So, we did settle it up now where I suggested to them if they could play during the day without lights, that would be something that would move these permits faster. So they did send me rosters, and they sent me liability policies. So I have a men's league that has requested a day, and I have a youth travel league that has requested probably 4 dates. There's no practice at night because there are no lights. So these are basically just games unless they're practicing during the day. So with that said, you have 2 soccer leagues and 2 youth baseball leagues. I did not receive any information from the softball league that had said they were gonna have this fall ball session. They were gonna send, the board asked for the information to be resubmitted. I did not receive that information.
The information that we request is complete, names, addresses on rosters, schedules of games.
Yes, the certificates of solicitations, some of them are outdated, but they're not soliciting funds right now at this point, and they're outdated because the Attorney General's office, I believe, has given them an extension due to the COVID situation. But next year, this board is going to have to be adamant about certificate of solicitations without expiration dates, because that's how you keep
I
leagues
believe the
honest.
last meeting, I'm the one who said paperwork should be complete. I know for a fact that if your certificate was running out, I understand about the COVID, let's make that clear. But if your certificate was running out, your application should have been in. And I believe the last meeting I suggested that if they, as part of their packet, if their certificate ran out, they should at least have a letter or an email stating that their application was submitted and due to COVID, it's being held up. Did we get any of those?
I don't remember that being said in that meeting about the certificate of solicitation. I do know that you wanted an updated COVID plan, you wanted updated rosters, you wanted a new, request with the name of the person and the contact, and I know that you wanted the, liability.
And I know
We
you-
have all that, the
And I know you
certificates,
denied any tournaments.
and we
Curtis.
Yeah,
denied,
because that's
State
part of the
guidelines.
state protocol.
Yep.
right. So as far as the certificate of solicitation, I could be incorrect, but I don't remember that. I know you wanted it, and we do have their previous certificate of
Well, I
solicitation.
recall that, saying that because a lot of application timeframe, and I'll check again, was before COVID started. If leagues knew their certificate was gonna run out in April or May, the application process should have began to renew it.
I agree,
And being,
unfortunately.
and I'll make this statement, being involved in a league, I know that's the case, because the league I'm involved in, or I used to be involved in, did it.
I'm gonna be completely
So-
honest with you, Commissioner. Up until a year ago, we did not require certificates of solicitation.
I am-
We found that out, this board found that out, we informed the board, and we received quite a bit of backlash from some leagues regarding obtaining a certificate of solicitation. As a matter of fact, I took quite a little bit of a beating because we were demanding these leagues to have certificates of solicitation to be sure that they were all using the funding that they were collecting for the specific purpose that they were collecting it for. And we were asked if we could give people leeway. And my answer to them was, the certificate of solicitation is not a Board of Park Commissioners requirement. It is an Office of the Attorney General's requirement. And we found that out, and we put that forward, and it was not received well. And it has not been received well. A few of the leagues, minimal leagues, have the certificate of solicitation, and they knew what we were talking about. Many of them had no idea. Leagues were having fundraisers, cash only, those kind of things kind of raise red flags. And that's where this certificate of solicitation came up. We have enforced it. I encourage this board next year when we do permits to stand by it and to stand by me when I am the one asking for these certificates of solicitation and taking the beating. So, we are well aware now in October of 2020 that in 2021, these leagues need a certificate of solicitation. It is my hope that this board will stand by me when I say these people cannot have permits because they do not have the proper documentation. I applaud this board if they do that. I can't say that that has been the case all along.
And I agree totally with what you just said, because I'm the guy who's been fighting for this, okay? Because it's a state law. It's like you said, it is not the park board's rule, it's state law. Nonprofit, certificate of solicitation, okay? It's been, and as you said, it's been going on for a year. Well, guess what? The buck has to stop here. And I will support that 110%, because you've had a year to figure it out. Now you're going into another 6-month period before your spring season starts, so there is no excuse why it's not done. Other than,
Certificates are expired now. So-
once again, this board, people who want things on this, from this board, don't want to follow the board's rules. Well, guess what? As far as I'm concerned, I will never vote for a permit if paperwork is not in order of what we request. It's been, again, over a year, and it's gonna stop. After I'm long gone, whatever this board wants to do is fine, but I will keep arguing and fighting that point until people understand this is not our rule, it's a state law. You're in violation of state law. And sooner or later, the Attorney General is gonna get a complaint. and they're gonna wanna know why this board is allowing it to go on. And I may be the only one standing alone saying it's not being allowed by this commissioner. So,
The main
everybody
reason-
can feel the way they want, I just tell you how I feel, and I'll leave it at that.
We allow these leagues to put up banners on our fences, on our property, on our field, which is fundraising. They are soliciting money from organizations and companies to put banners on our property. So when they don't have the proper documentation for fundraising, that puts us in the same situation because it's now, they're advertising on our property. So these, unfortunately, these things have to be pursued. And I know that it's not a popular thing, but I'm not gonna be the one, I will bring it back to this board, for this board, I will not get in the middle of it again, I've done that once.
I make a motion that,
I have a-
whenever
I
the
have
time
a-
is right, that they be notified, all the teams be notified, the rules, the new rules, and the regulations.
They're not new, they get the package every year, they get the letter of what the requirements are. We have leagues here, they're nodding their head, they know what the requirements are. We don't change the rules every year, our rules have stayed pretty much the same, except when something like this comes up. And the leagues that do are toeing the line, they knew what I was talking about when I said, do you know what they're looking for, a certificate of solicitation? Absolutely, I'll fax it to you, and they had it. Other leagues that, you know, wanted to, you know, buck heads and buck the system, it was a big battle to get that certificate of solicitation, and I was like, it's not our requirement. Once the Board of Park Commissioners finds out that this is something that is necessary for a nonprofit organization, how can we just turn our back on it? We gotta follow through. So, I mean, they need to, we don't ask much. I mean, they pay nothing for the fields, and what we just wanna know is, listen, everybody's on the up and up. We don't wanna get caught in the crossfire. So, like I said, to fight about it now, the fall ball season is over in another 3 weeks. But
I'm not
when-
fighting, I'm
No, saying
just
to
making
fight
a
with the
point.
leagues. For me to go and pursue this with the leagues, and for me to go out there and go, listen, you need to get this, you need to get this, it's like chasing the, you know, the cart down a hill. I'm never gonna catch up with it. But we are discussing it now, so when this comes back to this board, come March, or February, or April, there is no excuse for anyone not to know what's required, because now, this will be the third or fourth time that we're sending this documentation, this letter out to say, this is what you need to obtain a permit. If they're not gonna follow the rules, then you know what? We don't have to give them the field. There are organizations that are dying for more playing fields, and they follow the rules. So if those organizations are gonna get more kids and follow the rules, so be it. It's gonna make our life a lot easier. We're not gonna have to deal with someone not doing what they're supposed to do. So my point is, we've discussed it, these leagues are aware of it. It's not gonna be, oh, we had 3 months to get the information you wanted to get. You've now had almost 2 years to look into the information.
I have a inquiry. So I know I talked to you about it before, but I wanted to bring it to the rest of the commissioners. And I've known in the past, I've watched meetings and everything, that some of the leagues say that they have scholarships and that. I work with a lot of low-income kids, and I want to know is, if you're giving out scholarships to families that are low-income and everything, two-part question, how many, when we had the rosters, how many of our scholarships are from low income? And second, the travel teams that you make your money on and everything, how many of them scholarships are actually making them teams?
I guess that would be something that's something the board could ask over and above. I do know that there are parts of the year that every child plays. Certain teams of the year that every child plays. There are other times of the year that there are travel teams or AAU teams or whatever. I know Little League in their rules say no kid can sit more than 2 innings in a row, which guarantees that every kid plays. There are people, and there are people that come forward and say, you know, these travel teams are for the fortunate kids. There's only 30 kids that play because their parents can afford it. But I don't know what to say about that. I think what this board really has to concentrate on is and even if it's the permitting for those particular, like Fall River Youth Soccer, everybody plays is from September to November. The rest of the time, those are travel teams. I mean, how the board wants to address that, maybe that, you know, if they're gonna come up with a fee schedule, that's what you do. When you have the Little League teams, those months of the year, city supports those. When it's for-profit teams, then that's something else if the board wants to institute a fee. But I think the board has to work with these leagues to a certain extent of some of these times of the year to support all kids, to have everybody. And then in the end, like I said, even the AAUs, they keep kids off the street, they do whatever. But that's another story for another day. I think the board really has to paperwork first, and like you said, you may be able to request how many scholarships do you give. I don't know if that's, are we privy to that information? Do they have to give us that information? I don't think so. I wouldn't think so. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't wanna tell us if they give so many scholarships out, but I don't know that that has anything to actually do with their permitted time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just want to say, to the leagues that are here, they follow the rules. I'm not going to mention what leagues they are right now, but there's 2 leagues in attendance right now in this meeting, and I know for a fact that they follow the rules, okay? Other leagues don't. And I'm glad it's being brought up now. As was said, they have, you know, the year or 2 prior, plus over the winter, to get their ducks in order, okay? So, and I appreciate the leagues who do what they're supposed to do, okay? But, again, everybody's got to be on board with this. If they're not, come springtime, I will not support permits going out. And I may be the only negative vote, and that's fine. Won't be the first time. But, again, this is on tape. It's being viewed by the public. No excuses. This has to be taken care of. If you don't do it, then don't run a league, basically, because you're not qualified to do it. You know, you're putting yourself, the city, and this board in jeopardy. You know, and who knows? The way people are nowadays, they'll complain about anything. So I'm surprised that a complaint hasn't gone to the Attorney General yet. I yield.
Anybody else, anything? Yeah. Adjournment? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Commissioner Sylvia makes the motion, Commissioner Rego seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.